The following is brought to you by the Starfleet Podcast Network, SPN, The Spin. When I was down there on the set for the principal photography wrap for Axanar, it really felt like I kind of felt like I was in the hunt for Red October at one point. It was it was dark, but you could see everything you needed to see.
Yeah, it looks like the Red October.
Red alert. Welcome back to Critical-not-Cynical. I am Big J here with Nico, V-Man, Frank, and special guest Alec Peters. We are going to be talking about Prelude to Axanar, the film that really changed the sphere of Star Trek fan films. There were several fan films that have really made a mark out there just over the course of the entire run of fan films. And Prelude to Axanar is certainly one of them. So, Alec, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
How's everything going on your end?
Oh, just busy with cat and dog rescues. So we saved 3 little emaciated lab puppies today. We've been looking for. I've been working with the dog rescuer I work with, and there was these 3 little puppies there. Well, there was one little puppy that came up that was at Clayton Animal Control, and it was 9 pounds. It was 9 weeks old, emaciated. It was like 10 pounds. And I said, oh my God, we got to save that. And it turns out she came in with 2 siblings. Mm-hmm. And so Amy was able to get fosters for all 3. So now we're coordinating getting those 3 puppies. 2 of them are going up to North Carolina for fostering. One's staying here in Cumming. So that's what I've been doing the last couple hours is working on that and just planning my weekend, which is all going to be driving for these puppies. But it's all good. They're puppies. I mean, it's there's a lot worse things you can be doing in your life.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's good, taking care of the puppies and the cats and all of that. So we're going to talk about Prelude to Axanar, which I know I have seen several times. And I think, Nico, you just saw it for the first time just a little bit ago when we watched it together. And I'm going to let you guys start so that I'm not taking up the whole time talking, just to give us your thoughts and feelings, critique, review on it. Frank, do you want to start us off? Or V-Man, you can start us right off.
Well, I've seen it a couple times since coming into the fan film scene, and I do have a couple of questions. One, why did you choose this story in particular, like to go this route? It would have been easy to have you on a bridge. There's plenty of TOS bridges out there. It would have been easy to have you sitting in the center seat and being a hero of Axanar, like most people choose to film their films, with a crew and the fire phasers and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, but you do it as a narrative.
Yes. You chose to go this route. What was your inspiration for that? Why go this route?
So the idea was to make a film. I had written a script. For Axanar, titled Axanar, and it was a 2-hour movie. And so the idea was to raise the money, which, like, when I first planned it out, it was going to be. I was like, we're going to need about $600,000. But at that point, it was doing it on James Cawley's sets, like reconfiguring them, to Cage era style, something like that, and so the budget was, which originally started at $200,000 and then grew to about 600, and then we're like, we're never going to raise this money unless we do something. And I had seen Star Trek Renegades in 2013 had done this amazing teaser trailer for their Kickstarter. And it was Walter Koenig as Admiral Chekhov and Tim Russ as, I don't know what his rank was at that time, as Tuvok, and they were just on green screen and they were just talking. And I was like, man, that's what we need to do. We need to do something, some proof of concept that is that doesn't require us to build sets, and prove that we know what we're doing. And from that, then we could raise the money. So it was going to be 2 steps: raise money, do something, then raise the money we need for the movie. And the inspiration for Prelude to Axanar was the MASH episode called "The Interview," which was an episode. The screenplay won an Emmy Award, and it basically was a newsreel crew goes to the MASH 4077 and interviews everyone. So they're all interviewed in character, and there's not a lot of comedy. It's pretty serious, and I was like, that's what we do. We interview everyone. We're going to do a documentary, and we're going to do it on green screen. And listen, this is 2013. 2014, beginning of 2014 is when I came up with the idea, and that's what we decided to do. And honestly, I had never filmed anything. At that point, I had been on set at Star Trek New Voyages, and I got producer credits at Katoomba was the first one, and then because that was a mess, and Mark Edward Lewis and I basically rescued that project and saved it, and Mark edited it all, and it was great. And then there were a couple episodes that I was a producer on up there, but that was it. So this was my first project, so I was cutting my teeth on it as well. But that was the inspiration, and so we did Prelude. The first thing we did was we did a video where we told everyone we're going to make a short film called Prelude to Axanar. And it was only ever supposed to be, one episode. It was this fictitious documentary called The 4 Years' War, and this was episode 3, right? So when it came up, people were like, well, where's episode 1 and 2? And we're like, no, there is no 1 and 2. This is just like a proof of concept. So we shot this ask video, ASK, an ask video, asking for money. And Richard Hatch was there, and Ryan Huss, and me, and Christian Gossett, and Mark Edward Lewis. And we all got interviewed. And then I edited. Mark taught me how to edit. It was like legendary weekend. It was a 3-day weekend. I went to Mark's house. He taught me how to edit. Because I said, well, would you edit this? Let me give you $500, you edit. And he goes, how about you give me $500 and I teach you how to edit? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And I'm like, yeah, good. It was Final Cut 7 back then. This is 2014. So I sat down and he showed me how to do it, and I picked it up really fast. I will say I was a very quick study, and without sounding like an arrogant ass, which I often do, but not this time, is Mark was like, you are a natural at this. He said, I've never seen anyone pick up editing so fast as you. But it just made sense to me. I was like, well, it's really storytelling. And he goes, yes, exactly. I go, I get it. Just tell the story. It was the technical stuff he was teaching me, but I kind of got the flow. And so the Ask video was really freaking good. And if you watch it, I think it's on the YouTube channel. I went back and watched it, and I was like, and it's 10 years old at this point. And I was like, holy shit, I'll give this guy my money. I was like, it's that good.
Yeah.
So we raised $101,000. And, I was looking to raise $10,000. I was like, I'm going to sell my car. I had a Lotus Esprit at the time. I was like, I'm going to sell my car. And I'll take 10 grand from there, and then we'll raise 10 grand, 20 grand. We probably can make it for 20 grand, which was really stupid. But that's how little I knew back then, was I thought I could do it for 20 grand. Well, it took 100 grand. And we raised 100 grand, thank God. So we raised 100 grand, and, all of a sudden you're like, okay, so I don't have to go into debt, and I don't have to spend the money that I sold my car for. And, but then you start realizing how expensive it is to shoot with, 5 professional actors and an Oscar-winning makeup artist, and so anyway, we made it for $100,000, but the whole idea was to do this proof of concept and to do it as a documentary, And then when we finished it and we raised $600,000 that summer and another 600 the next summer, we built a studio. We rented out a building, we built a studio. And, hey, hindsight's 2020, right? Hindsight's 2020. I would not do any of that. And I would have literally moved to Georgia, built a studio, built the sets, and I'd do it all here, and I would have done it for, and we would have been done. But hindsight's 2020, and you never know. So the whole goal was to make the 2-hour movie. That was why we made Prelude, and that's kind of why we made the documentary, because it was, there's this bar that we had to stay up. We set the bar ourselves, and the bar we set was above anything that had been done by a fan film at that time. Right? I was like, because I was on the set of Renegades. And so I got to see Tim Russ direct, and I got to see Walter Koenig act, and I got to see a lot of, there were a lot of great people there. And we got Bing Bailey came from working on there. So I got to see some great people, but Renegades, the shoot was a mess because they didn't have a locked script. And they kept changing it. And then they'd come in that day and makeup department was ready for Andorians, and they had changed the script and they were going to shoot Klingons. And it was a mess. And I say that they had a great line producer, Frank Zanka, who line produced for us as well. And they had a good makeup team in Tim and Lisa, who did Star Trek Continues. And Scott Conway is a super nice guy, right? I don't want to throw anyone under the bus or throw shade, but the shoot was a mess. It was crazy. It was both good. I learned so much, but at the same time, like, people were pulling their hair out, and the schedule was messed up and everything. So I was like, that is not happening with us. We can't do this. So I learned a lot what not to do also, And so our bar was pretty high, so we had to always stay. So back to your question about why didn't we do it as a narrative? Because we couldn't stay above the bar if we were doing it as a narrative on so little money, right? The budget. So, they always say you have three things. There are three things, and you can have two of them: speed, quality, and what's the third one? I forget now. Speed, quality, and cost, right? Those are your three variables, and you can do two of them. So if you want it fast, it's either going to be very expensive or you're going to lose quality, and you work with those three variables. And we knew that quality was the most important thing to us. And we also knew that we weren't going to have a lot of money. So it was like, okay, well, let's take our time and let's do this the right way. And there you go. And so that's how we got Prelude. That's why Prelude is the way it looks. And so it's when we had the settlement agreement with CBS and Paramount, and they said, well, you can only make 2 15-minute episodes. My mind was like, okay, got it.
You didn't lose anything out.
Down into it, 30 minutes. We're going to make the next 2 episodes. We're going to tell the story. And that's why we're now making episodes 4 and 5 of the 4 Years War documentary.
When it came time to approach like J.G. Hetzler and like Tony Todd, all of them, how did you? Were they people you already knew? Because I know you and JG are thick as thieves now. We all went to Vegas together, and you guys were just buddying it up. Was that something that happened because of Axanar, or was that something that was that a relationship you had before Axanar? Was this more of a
right? JG was because of Axanar. So the way it happened is, as I was told, Richard Hatch was a very good friend of mine. I had known him since 1993, when I went to the 15-year Battlestar reunion and met him, and he had flyers on his table. He was teaching an acting class at his home in Hollywood, and I signed up, and we became great friends. So Richard was the first person I cast, and of course this is after Battlestar had finished and all, and we had some very interesting conversations about Battlestar Galactica, because I was there through the entire genesis of Richard Hatch and the new Battlestar Galactica, from him being against trying to do his own project and then being disappointed and then coming around and Ron inviting him, and Tom Zarek was one of the role of a lifetime for him in his mind. Agreed, and I agree. So Richard was the first. I approached Richard and I was like, okay, Richard, I want you to play a Klingon. I said, I honestly can't use you as Richard Hatch. You're so hot off of Battlestar Galactica. I want to make you a Klingon. And he loved that. He was like, yeah, great, Klingon. So anyway, then I had a friend who I knew from Star Trek Las Vegas, and she knew JG. She had performed with him when he was doing his rock band act. She was his singer. And I said, hey, would you introduce me? She said, sure. So she makes the introduction to JG, and I called JG up, and he's JG. He's the nicest, genuine, most genuine guy. Very, very matter of fact, very no bullshit. Has very little tolerance for idiots. But he's just really generous, a generous soul, and a lot of fun to be with. And as you know, he's very magnanimous and loves hanging out with people, meeting new people, which was a very Richard thing. So anyway, JG comes on, and after JG, I got Gary Graham, because I had been introduced to Gary by Bing Bailey, our DIT, who's one of our producers on Axanar, who had worked on Renegades. So he knew Gary from Renegades. He introduced me. I pitched Gary. At this point, I got JG and I got Richard Hatch. So Gary Graham's like, sure, I'm in. And then it was WonderCon, which is like San Diego Comic-Con's LA convention. It happens in Orange County. And Richard Hatch had an autograph table right next to Kate Vernon. So and I knew Kate Vernon's manager, assistant. And so I'm hanging out with Richard all day, and Kate, and after I forget how it is, I think, but I start talking to Kate. Like, I get up from Richard's table and I start talking to Kate because her assistant introduces me. So we start chatting, and we start chatting, and I tell her about the project and everything. And I walked away from a table going, I am going to write a character for that lady. Like, because I didn't really know Kate Vernon. I didn't know her from a hole in the wall. I knew her in Battlestar Galactica. So I know her as Ellen Tigh, as this lush. And then you meet her, and she's a lady of incredible grace and elegance, and she's Hollywood royalty. Her father is John Vernon, who Dean Wormer, or even, I love John Vernon because of it. He was the bounty hunter in The Outlaw Josie Wales, which, if you're a Clint Eastwood fan, is it's one of my favorite Clint Eastwood movies. And I'm not even a Clint Eastwood fan, and I love that movie. But there's a great scene at the end where, if you're familiar with the movie, John Vernon finally catches up with Josie Wales. But it's kind of like he was like reluctantly hunting Josie Wales, and the guys hunting Josie Wales were assholes, and so Josie Wales kills them all, but except John Vernon. And John Vernon finally catches up on him, and he's basically got Josie Wales dead to rights. But John Vernon's character says, basically cuts him loose. He basically says to Josie Wales, he says, if you ever see Josie Wales, tell him that it's over, and blah, blah, blah. And it's a great scene. And John Vernon, knowing him as Dean Wormer, all of a sudden he's this badass bounty hunter. And it was fantastic. And he was in Mission Impossible stuff. So I seen John. So I was like, I'm writing something for Kate Vernon. And I was like okay, and you know, sometimes you meet an actor and the character writes itself for you. You're like, I know where this person. I know where I know the character this person can inhabit.
It takes a life of its own, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kate's character wrote it. It was just like boom. I knew exactly who she was, and so Christian Gossett, who was my director at the time, we went and some bakery with Kate and pitched her, and she liked it, and she signed on. And then Tony Todd was last. And at that point, we were like, these are the other 4 guys. You want in? And we went for a Korean barbecue. And he signed on. And so that's kind of how we got everyone. And it was just really it was wonderful to watch everyone work, especially for me, you know, a young actor. I was 53. young actor being I at the beginning of my acting career.
Right. Well, that was one of the things. That was one of the things about watching Prelude is you go into it like, because I had no expectations. You know, all I knew was, you know, okay, Alec Peters, he's made this, you know, big fan film. Okay, I'll check it out. And then you watch and you're like, oh wait, I know that guy. Wait, I know that person's voice. Oh, I know that lady. I can't quite picture. I know her from somewhere, but like you watch the whole thing and you're just like, I recognize everybody here, and then you get the CGI and you're just like, holy cow, this is fucking Star Trek. Oh my god. I mean, it's a wonderful piece of cinematography on every level, from story, CGI, characters. I mean, you feel like they live in the world of Star Trek. The small little world that you built for that, it feels very lived in. The characters feel really real. It was a real great pleasure to watch the film every time I've watched it. So you doing the Ask video, it was always your intention to leave it on a cliffhanger to kind of draw the people in, to be like, hey, this is what we can do, and we want to do more. Leave them wanting more.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Rob Burnett had shown Prelude to Axanar to Bryan Singer, and Bryan Singer's comment was, I'm cliff hung. And I was like, good, that's right. That's kind of the intent of it. And Prelude was really, it was lightning in a bottle. There's a lot of reasons why Prelude was what it was. And it is really the classic, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Because everyone did amazing work. And I think you hit on one thing. I think if you know, I basically wrote the script, and then Christian Gossett came in and helped and edited and rewrote stuff like, excuse me, Tony Todd's speech was mostly Christian. Christian really rewrote that, and he did a great job. And Christian did a great job working with the actors. But Christian was like nowhere to be found in the editing room. He wanted nothing to do with that. You know, he didn't choose his selects. You know, a director will go through all the takes and said, this is the one I want. He didn't want to do that. So Rob Burnett picked that up and did a lot of the work the director would do, which worked out fine. Because Rob's an amazing editor. Rob's a really great editor. And so we had that. And then we had the music, where Alex Bornstein was just so amazing. And we had an Academy Award-winning makeup artist. And just a lot. I mean, a matter of fact, I'll even remember that, like the Wednesday, I don't remember the exact day, but a day or a couple days before we were scheduled to shoot, Kate Vernon got sick. and we had to switch her around. And I don't quite remember how we did the school, who we swapped, but it was like, that was one of those things like, this could really screw us. And I'll remember I was driving down to Laguna Beach. It was first date I had with one of the first weekends I had as a date with Diana at the time, the lady I was dating at the time, and who was one of the producers on Prelude. And we solved the problem before we ever got to Laguna Beach. It's like I was on the phone, she had the phone, I was telling her who to dial, and we solved the problem. And that was kind of like a good sign. Like, that was like, okay, here's this big wave crashing on us, and we were able to ride it out. But that's the way it was. Everything just kind of worked. And we had such a great crew. We had a great two great line producers. We had Jennifer Wembley, and then we had Frank Zanka. So we had two great line producers, which is unusual. And they brought in, Jennifer brought in a great team. And Christian did a great job. And our DP, Milton, was phenomenal. I mean, a great art director, production designer. Everyone just did their job really well. And it was funny that we shot on like 2 consecutive Saturdays. It was a 2-day shoot, but the 2 days were separated by a week. And the first weekend, I was just telling, JG and I were just talking about this the other day. It was Gary Graham, JG Hertzler, and Tony Todd. I were the first 3. And so Gary Graham was getting changed, and I think JG was on set, and Tony was, I think, supposed to go second. And I had nothing to do. I don't shoot till the next weekend. And Tony Todd came up to me, and he was like, "Are you nervous?" I'm like, "What do I have to be nervous about? I'm not doing anything. I'm not shooting today." I said, "My performance is next weekend." So I said, "I got great people here that they know what to do. I'm not micromanaging anyone. I'm just chilling out." So but that's the way that went. So Prelude really was lightning in a bottle. And getting back to the bar, so now the bar, as we're doing the next 2 episodes, is Prelude, and you see stuff, and this is the beauty of the fact that we've had 4 major shoots over 3 years, 1, 2, 2.5 years, right? First shoot was November of 2021. Now that doesn't include the 2019 shoot, which we did use 2 performances from, but everything else got thrown away. And so we had time, and that allowed us to reshoot stuff, that allowed us to change things, that allowed us to, and because the bar is always Prelude, and it's like, is this going to work? And Mark and I both know where our heads are, and we both know, you can tell, and you see it on screen, and you go, "Yep," or you go, "Oh, that's just not working." I showed someone our assemblies the other day, and we were talking, and they said to me, "Your Vulcan is amazing." And I'm like, "Yes, she is." That was one of those things, and that's one of we got one of my friends from Howard Fine's acting school from 10 years ago had moved to Atlanta, and she was going to do background, and I said, "What do you read for this Vulcan?" Because she's a beautiful girl, Asian. I'm like, "Okay, read for this." And she didn't. Her first reading sucked, and so we worked on it. And she kept taping herself. She was great. She'd do the lines, and I'd give her feedback, and then I passed her off to Mark, and Mark was like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Trust me, work with her," and he did, and she's brilliant. She's brilliant. So here's someone you've never seen before, and she nails it. And we have 19 actors in these next 2 episodes. Prelude is a really high bar, as you know, and we just keep looking back to Prelude as we've got to be at least as good as Prelude. And I think it's listen, it's a good bar. I dare say, at the risk of being arrogant, that everyone who's making a fan film uses Prelude as some sort of marker, right? Either for inspiration potentially, or oh man, they did this, why don't we do this? And I think I think the quality of fan films overall has improved so significantly over the last 10 years.
Well, it shows you when I first started doing fan films, my partner Jeremy and I, we watched. You have to be able to see the good in the bad fan films, and you have to be able to see the bad in the good fan films. And even if you don't use Prelude as any type of guide, you have to at least watch it and say, okay, this is what worked for that film, and let's see this as at least a jumping off point for what we're doing. And same thing with Star Trek Continues. Even if you don't like those films, watch one of them. Go look and see, okay, what looks like it would be an interesting story, and watch one. Same thing with Phase 2. Even if you don't like the series, watch one. And I would say that same thing with Valiant or Avalon, Farragut. Watch one from at least one of those shows. See what works for you if you're going to make a film. Because there's a lot of different types of fan films, and see what you kind of gravitate towards. Because there's a huge difference between, say, a George Cayenne film, a Frank Parker film, a Joe Sapita film, Alec Peters film, a Vance film, a Josh Irwin film. Like, there's a huge difference in the Trek sphere. No pun intended. And there's so much out there to take inspiration from, and I think there's a lot to take inspiration from with what you've done. So
don't just look at me. Yeah, that's a great point, because yesterday I was watching Squadron again, and Squadron is freaking brilliant. It's just brilliant filmmaking. I mean, talk about a fan film. That is. They're top notch. There's so much good in that film. It's just amazing. So I absolutely agree. But you can even go back to, I think that Exeter is effort. Trekyards intersection is the beginning of the modern age of Star Trek fan films, right? And that is still one of the top 5 Star Trek fan films of all time. I think most of us would agree. So you can go back, and that is 22 years ago. I mean, was that 2000?
Yeah, 2001. I think 2001 is when they shot it, and they took a couple of years. I think they released it.
Oh, it took like 10 years to get out. Yeah. But you look at that, and that is like the beginning of the recreation era, like recreating TOS, right? And I remember the first time I ever saw the teaser, the teaser before the credits, and when they come around the corner and see the crashed hull of the Congo, I'm like,
blown away.
Wow. Yeah, I was just blown away, and it's so there are so many fan films that do so many different things well, and like you said, some of them do some things well and some things poor. I mean, let's face it, acting is always going to be, as long as you're bringing your friends in, you're always going to have problems with your acting, right? But sometimes that's fine, and sometimes the film makes up for it in so many other places. I mean, I love what I'm seeing from Farragut forward here. I'm really looking forward to what those guys do, because I think there's they're doing a lot of really nice stuff. Yep. But everyone has, there's something in fan films for everyone, and you just have to find what you like and what you don't like. Like, listen, honestly, if it wasn't for you, Vance, I wouldn't watch your films. If you were like Joe Blow, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to watch Joe Blow's films, but I watch Vance's films, and so I get at it. I enjoy watching my friend in his Star Trek fan film journey. All 2,000 episodes of it.
Frank, would love to hear your take on Prelude to Axanar.
I've got a question about set design. Who came up with the actual concept of the bridge?
Well, it was always me. Look, my design parameters were always. Remember, we were originally going to shoot this on James Cawley's bridge.
Right, the Constitution.
So we were going to, because he had done when he was doing Origins, the episode he has, one of the 3 episodes that's never released, he had converted the Enterprise bridge to a cage-era bridge.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, so we know he's able to do that. Let's figure out how we're going to change it for our bridge, which happens before the cage. And I know Darren Doctorman had done a quick sketch for me, like, oh, do this, and because basically we were thinking, okay, if TOS was shot in the 1960s, and the cage is 10 years earlier, 11 years earlier, whatever. So that's basically kind of like the 1950s, right?
Right.
Like, and we're 10 years before that. I'm like, so we're basically the war movie. And so we started trying to balance, well, we don't want to start looking like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, right? Because 10 years, that's where the 40s, Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon were like the late 30s, early 40s. We're like, oh, so we don't want to necessarily be doing that. So anyway, at some point we decided to build our own studio and build our own bridge. Once we made that decision, then I was like, one, we're going to build it based on a TOS bridge, because we may want to change it to a TOS bridge at some point, and we want to do something that's familiar. So that was kind of the design parameter that we set down. All right, so it's TOS bridge. The major change then was what happens in the command well. And I was like, it's not going to be, helm and nav. So originally it was a station, it was a triple station originally. And I really only realized that a couple of months ago when I found one of my original drawings. It was like, oh yeah, originally it was a triple station, right? And from there I said, you know what? Let's change that even more. And I said, let's have 2 stations in front of a pilot. So let's do the Voyager thing with one person as the pilot. There's no helm and nav, there's just a pilot. And put 2 stations in front, which will give us a tactical station and a fleet op station. And so that's kind of how it developed. And
Yeah,
then the I was just gonna say, the actual visual style that was overlaid on top of the wood is basically came from Alexander Richardson and Dana, mostly Alexander, really, because Alexander started working with us when we were in LA, and the first button panels, which we did back then.
Well, I know I really was impressed with, I like the way your pilot station is. I have like 500 or 600 pictures of it. And so you may see something similar. But I did, for those who don't realize it, do you see on the bridge those lights down there? Mm-hmm. Those lights are because of this gentleman below me.
Yeah.
He said, I don't think those grates you have look good. And it looks a lot different. I have TVs up there now. So still working on that. So
no, it looks good. It looks much better, Frank.
Oh yeah, I love it, with those lights down there. And we've got
more practical lighting. I mean, because that's kind of the way they went in Enterprise, right? They went with a lot more practical lighting on that bridge. And that's one of the nice things about our bridges. There's so much practical lighting that we turn off all the house lights, and it really pops. So
it does. When I was down there on the set for the for the principal photography wrap for Axanar, it really felt like I kind of felt like I was in the hunt for Red October at one point. It was it was dark, but you could see everything you needed to see.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. It looks like the Red October, and that's kind of purposeful. Like we're always taking cues from war movies, and that was an important part of the whole process. Was like, we're at war, so let's take cues from let's take those cues, and I think Hunt for Red October is one of everyone's favorite war movies, Cold War movies, whatever. So yeah, it's Hunt for Red October is so impressive because the Red October and the Dallas look so fundamentally different, right? And that's something we've tried to do when we show different ships, is have different colors. I mean, listen, if we had made the full-length movie, you would have seen, when you saw the Endorian ship, it would have been the same bridge, but really looked different. There were going to be, every monitor was going to be different. And the color scheme was going to be different. We were going to paint it different. I mean, it was meant to really which we just can't do. But nonetheless, we still make small changes because you will see a couple flashback scenes in the next few episodes.
I would. I'm sorry, Frank. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what I like about the fact is when you look at Prelude, and I'm a set guy. I like looking at different things and the way they're set up. You can tell that you had that vision all along. This is what you wanted to have it. And what I like about the Ares is the fact that she looks more like a submarine and more like what I envision a spacecraft looking like. It's more condensed. Colors are darker. I've even painted our bridge different. We had that bluish gray. Now it's a darker gray. And my bridge is of course much smaller than yours, but I'm looking for that same type of thing, that compact, everybody is in one area and not wasting air and space.
Yeah. I think I think you approach things with a design in your head. I always tell the story that when I was doing the Battlestar Galactica auctions through my company PropWorks, I started an auction house, and we got the deal to do the Battlestar Galactica auctions. And so the first auction, we did 2 live auctions at the Pasadena Convention Center and in 2 different buildings there. The first was a temporary, one of those semi-permanent tents they had set up, and it was really nice. And we had the 3 ships in the middle, and we had props in the back, costumes on the right, set deck on the left, 3 ships. It was very impressive. The second auction, we did, and we basically created the hangar deck of the Galactica, and they got some big foam pieces made that kind of look like those pillars in the Galactica hangar deck, and we had the red and black, and we had the ships line. It looked amazing. And then we had the set deck, and we had everything. It looked amazing. And Kurt Ford, the guy who was in charge, we were out, before the auction started, we were out in the hallway, and he said, "Wow, did you ever think it would look like this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I thought it looked. This is exactly the way I envisioned it looking." I said, "Kurt, that's why you hired me. It wasn't because it was because I had a vision for what we wanted, and we were going to build the auctions to that vision." I said, "So the key is is executing that." I said, and I'm a big believer that the vision is what separates people, and the execution. You have to have the execution as well, but you have to have that vision. And I think that's important, and I think we have a vision for, like, if we build our own studio, which we're hoping to, and we build the other sets, like we just built the captain's quarters, right? We rebuilt it, which we had set up in LA and then at the old studio, and it's reset up now. But we're going to do a corridor, and we're going to do other rooms. And there's a different design. It's not going to look like TOS because we set forth a design idea that this is a warship, and there's bulkheads everywhere, and the frames between sections have doors that close, right? And we're going to show that. And so it was meant with this, and it was a different color theme. Yeah. So yeah, I think when you do that, you have a design theme, and then you execute on that design theme. And this is, I think that's part of that is what separates the great Hollywood production designers like Herman Zimmerman, who did Star Trek, right? There's when you look at the different enterprises over the years, there's different design elements, right? The TMP bridge looks different than the Star Trek 4 bridge. And different than, so I like that, and I really appreciate production design. I'm not saying I'm great at it. I'm just saying I have a vision for my project.
You talk about going just for a layman that's looking at just a captain's chair and seeing the back monitors. Just looking at that, you've set yourself apart just from the one aspect of if you go back to one of my favorite Next Generation episodes, Yesterday's Enterprise, looking at the regular Enterprise D bridge, which is spacious and glorious and grandiose, and it's almost like a hotel room. And then when it shifts in time, and it's dark, it's blue, and it's very claustrophobic. You've got the two tactical things on the side, going up to the captain's chair, it's the steps. It's tactical is right there. It's basically over his shoulder instead of like high up here. It's visually very different, but just the lighting of it looks very different. There's blues shining on Picard's face. Just that one little thing, though, the light, it changes the mood. And just looking at the captain's chair and the back monitors, you wouldn't be able to, a layman wouldn't be able to tell the difference between that captain's chair on the back monitors and, say, TOS captain's chair on the monitors. But just that lighting sense that you've given sets your bridge apart, and just the feeling that it gives of this is a darker ship. This is a darker feel. And the story that we're telling is not the go explore mankind and the galaxy. It's we're here to kick your ass, and we're going to do a good job doing it.
And that's and you notice that also in Interlude, the way Josh Irwin shot Interlude. When you're looking at the Ares, it's much darker than when you're looking at the Artemis, right? He lights them differently, and that's absolutely that's the way we envision it. But we've always said that it was a warship, and so when someone on a live stream today was joking around, said, "Hey, are there bowling alleys on the Ares?" And we're like, "Hell no! It's a warship." There's a Starbucks, but there's no bowling alleys.
It's a phaser range.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I've got to show off. I just got this in the mail today. This is one of those Star Trek wines.
Oh.
And my good friend Don Alvarez sent this to me as a gift. He bought it for me. It's a special order. He specially ordered it from the company because on the back, it is, I don't know if you can see, you probably can't see it. It's number 1650 of 1701.
Oh.
Wow. 1650 being the registration number of the USS Ares. So anyway, very excited about this. And it's going up on my shelf with all my other.
That's a wine you don't drink. You just, you put it up on a shelf.
That turning into vinegar over the next 30 years.
Yeah. The take that I'm really excited to hear about, and I'm going to put her on the spot. Well, not really on the spot. You knew this time was coming. Nico, I want to get your impressions of Prelude to Axanar, because we've all seen it several times, and this is the first for you. So as someone who's seen it for that first time, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was really impressed with, I guess, how well all the actors it just felt very natural for all of them together in each of their roles. Is there any sort of reunion or forward pieces of getting them back together for something else?
Not for something else. Of the actors, so we have from Prelude, 4 of the 6 actors are back in the next 2 episodes.
Oh, great. Okay.
And continuing those characters.
Fabulous.
And so that's but I think what you hit on is the characters work well with each other because obviously they're designed to work well with each other, right? It's not, we didn't just write lines for J.G. Hertzler for his character and then lines for Kate Vernon for her. Remember, there's also a 2-hour feature film script behind all of this. So all those actors got to read the full feature script to learn the background of their characters. And then each of those actors talked to me about those characters. And so JG and I talked about his, and Kate had we had a lot of discussions about Kate, and like Kate was struggling with her character. Like even the week before she called me up, I'll never forget. I remember driving down the highway in LA. She calls me up and she's like, she's like, oh well, I really don't know about this character. And I said, look, I said, when you think of this character, and I don't remember if she brought it up or if I brought it up, I said, it's not like I told her, look, this character is tough. She's an ass kicker. I said, that does not mean she's one of the boys, right? I said, you got to think of this captain as Wonder Woman. I said, she's all the strongest parts of a woman. Has nothing to do with male energy. It has to do with really powerful female energy. And so when I mentioned the Wonder Woman thing to her, I said, yeah, I mean, Wonder Woman plays in the same playground as Superman and Batman. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't give a shit, right? There you go. That's your. And she was like, oh, okay, I get it. And I said, look, Kate, I said, when I was writing the backstory for Sonia, I envisioned her as the sole daughter in a family of ranchers in Calgary, Canada. She grew up riding horses. She was riding a horse when she was 4, and she had a bunch of brothers that she was always competing with. And that's a little bit from my background, because when I was coaching women's volleyball, you always wanted to recruit the girl who grew up with brothers. They were just naturally more competitive than the girls who did. And but I told her that, and she's from Canada, so she got it, and she was like, "Okay, oh yeah, I got it." So building the backstory for the characters is how you get the performance you want, right? That's why for like playing Garth, the big takeaway for Garth was we did a lot of work reviewing Band of Brothers and what's the Tom Hanks
Saving Private Ryan.
Saving Private Ryan.
Right.
Yeah. So we reviewed a lot of all those interviews with all the World War II veterans. Like, we really spent a lot of time on that. Like, how do they talk about the war? Right? And what's their tone like when they're talking about the war? And what are they looking at? And how, what are you seeing in their eyes? And like, we spent a lot of time on that, and we did rehearsals on that, and that was important because I wanted to infuse that into Garth, because Garth suffers from PTSD, and that's the reason when Garth is injured and he goes through this process of learning cellular metamorphosis to heal himself and all, and he goes crazy. His crazy manifests itself in megalomania, in this desire to conquer the universe, because he wants to end war, because he's been so scarred by it, and it's one of those things that you push down, you push it down, you push it down, and at some point it may leak out in some strange way. So for me, having that, and listen, one of the nicest compliments I ever got was some guy who was like, when I saw you, Alec, he was like, you just reminded me of Dick Winters in Band of Brothers. And I was like, well, wow, thanks. I was like, that's the nicest thing you could possibly say to me, because that means I did my job.
And it was a great job that you did and everyone involved with the production did for Prelude to Axanar. It's a great film, and I'd like to wrap us up now. So we could probably sit for the whole night talking about Star Trek, how that is. Alec, thank you very, very much for sitting down with us and telling us some stories. We've talked about Prelude to Axanar several times, and I still heard some new stories that I hadn't heard before. So that's always a treat to get that. And Frank, Vance, Nico, thank you for being here with us and with this talk. We'll definitely going to be doing this a lot, and really, really, really looking forward to Axanar coming up. It's keep my really, really looking forward to that one. So so that's going to be great. And if you would, Alec, so that the people can stay up on the know for just new Axanar stuff, releases, tell us about the newsletter.
Yeah, so just go to axanar.com and click on the link up top on newsletter and put your email in there and sign up for the newsletter. And that's the best way to get all the information on what's happening about Axanar. We'll tell you about it. You can go to our YouTube channel as well. Just search Axanar. But sign up for the newsletter. That's the best way to stay up to date with everything that's happening.
Good. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper, my friends.
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can support us at patreon.com/BeyondTrek.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.